Since quarantine started, I decided to grow myself some plants in some pots and a planter in my basement. Initially, this was just a project to make some herbs for cooking. Eventually turned to a little self-observation on growing conditions for plants and how they affect the air we breathe in. I grew some bigger plants, as you can see here, like some pumpkins we have, some peppers, some tomatoes. These all started about March 29th, so it's been 10 weeks since then. Then I have some smaller ones, as you can see here, like basil, we grew a lot of, and cilantro also. And I started growing those about April 29th, so that's been about 6 weeks since then. I had all of these plants under plant lights, and even though not every brand was the same, they all had similar wattages and also similar color temperatures. Now I know that plants only really need red and blue light waves, but the color temperatures I used on the lights were pretty close to what sunlight is, about 5,000 kelvins. I chose to use my basement initially because that was really the only spot in my house that we had room in. Outside really wasn't an option either because I know squirrels and birds would eventually just dig the seeds out like they always do. Also, the basement is a good quote-unquote control because nobody really goes down there except to do laundry, and there's no air system down there. And also, I go down there daily, usually at night, to have a workout or play video games, so I'm down there a lot to observe. And having something after working out to clean the air isn't a bad idea, so that was another reason that I enjoyed putting the plants in the basement. Now, of course, it's not the best control because it's not really a closed system, but to be honest, it was the best environment I really had available to measure this. To find my results, I didn't really use any air testers. I just relied on my own senses to detect any changes. It's really not the most effective way to measure, but in reality, air quality just depends on how the person feels around the air. So if I'm happy with the air, then I feel that it's a pretty successful observation. I plan to have the lights on every day from about 8 a.m. until 12 a.m. So that would mean 16 hours on, 8 hours off, trying to keep up with a regular light schedule of the sun. And also water them every other day in the morning, but sometimes I'd water them the next day after I already watered them, just if they seem dry on certain days. Usually it would be every other day I'd water them. After about 2 weeks, when most of the leaves started showing, I did notice a tiny change in air quality. It was nothing crazy, but if you'd walk over near the plants and breathe in, the air definitely did smell a little bit better than it did before the plants were put in the basement. My basement's only about 8 feet by 16 feet, so there isn't a ton of area for the plants to cover either. One thing that did come to mind though was if that there's no people down there, where would they get the carbon dioxide from, since they need photosynthesis to grow? But if there's no carbon dioxide to fuel the photosynthesis, then how would they grow? So after a quick Google search, I found out there's only really 0.0391% of the air around us that's actually carbon dioxide. So clearly that's not a lot, that's almost nothing, but it did seem like enough for the plants to grow because they were growing pretty well down there. I took the next recording about 6 weeks after I started growing them, and there definitely was a noticeable change in the air quality. It didn't smell like a rose garden or anything, but the air definitely lost that musty sort of basement smell, and in all honesty, it just smelled like, well, nothing, which is better than any stink so it was definitely an improvement. After 10 weeks, I took my final consensus and determined that the plants definitely did improve the air quality of my small basement. Considering how big they got over those 10 weeks, they took in a lot of carbon dioxide and definitely released a lot of oxygen. I didn't initially have time to measure the plants height-wise from start to finish, but I needed this project. I figured why not add on to something that I was already working on. It was going pretty well to begin with. So, my advice on growing plants in your house about air quality, my 2 cents would really be that you're going to need to be patient, and it's going to take a lot of plants depending on the size of your house, depending on people are opening doors, going in and out, what room they're put in. After 3 months or so, you'll definitely be happy, I think, the way I was happy with my results.